I won't ask any of you to raise your hand, but like Brene Brown, I'm also now striving to be a good enoughist, which kind of went into our affirmation today. Now, I self-identified myself as a recovering perfectionist before ever reading this phrase in Brene Brown's book. However, upon reading this section, this guidepost called Cultivating Self-Compassion, Letting Go of Perfectionism, I was pleasantly surprised not only to see all the things I related to, but to get this feeling like, oh, I'm not in this alone. And it's a journey. It's a journey to go through this process of letting go of perfectionism. Now, from my own experience, I've learned that this path to overcoming perfectionism, overcoming this behavior, this ingrained belief system that is ultimately rooted in the idea that one is not good enough, that one has to let go little by little, task by task, day by day. This isn't going to be a journey that you just complete in a day. It's not going to be a journey that you complete in a week. It's certainly not going to be a journey you complete in a year. And it's not going to be a journey that you're going to complete just by reading a book. As good as this book is, you have to do the work. And it is that. It's a lifetime of work. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I've only just started my process. I started my process about 2 years ago. I started understanding, oh, wait, perfectionism comes with, problems. Oh, wait, I've been doing this my whole life. Holy cow, right? So I'm still a baby. I'm still relatively new at this. I'm not there yet. I'm not perfect at being imperfect yet. I'm getting there, right? But introspection, taking classes with Unity, doing the work, meditation, contemplation, these are the kinds of things that have helped me come to the realization that perfectionism gets in the way of living sometimes, right? It has gotten in the way of my life. So perfectionism really is this double-edged sword, okay? On the one hand, I've used it and maybe still do because in some ways it seemingly allows me to feel like I fit in a world where I feel isolated, where I feel alien. And at the same time, perfectionism has also been the root of much of my anxiety and of burnouts, and I've experienced both, okay? So I want you to understand, I come at this not from a mastery of this, just based on what I've learned. So I'm just sharing with you from my experience. And what I've learned so far is we cannot be everything to everybody, no matter how hard we try. And trust me, I've tried. Those who know me know I try, and know I don't succeed. Can't be there for everybody at every turn. We also can't be on, running at 100% all the time. It's just not feasible. It's not what we can do. We have to take rest. We have to take breaks. We have to do self-care. And we have to live our life with some sense of self-compassion. Or else we're not going to get through it, guys. Now, those who know me know a little bit about my background, but for those who don't, I'm going to share something with you today that you may not have known about. I am autistic. I was diagnosed late in life, just a little over a year ago, although I was considering, hey, I might be autistic for close to 10 years before I went out and actually looked at receiving a diagnosis. And so my autistic brain, the way I visualize things, the way my brain operates, the way, I don't know, it feels like a Linux in like a PC world, I don't know. It's complicated because I have trouble letting go of perfectionism. And one of the reasons why is I have difficulty picking up on social norms. And because of that, I tend to overcompensate in all those areas that I do well in. All those areas such as achievement and performance, those areas where you know what you're being scored on, you know how to get the score, you know what you're supposed to do, you know how you're going to be judged and evaluated, and so you put your all into those things, more than your all sometimes. And so as Brené Brown points out, I am one of these perfectionists that was raised and praised for getting good grades and for following the rules. And that's when I could figure out the rules. I have trouble with that one. Academic rules seem fairly straightforward. Social rules, not so much. So I've learned that my brain tends to see things in black and white. Yeah, I know rationally there's a lot of shades of gray out there. My brain does not seem to recognize those. Don't ask me why. It's black and white, right and wrong, and so naturally, perfectionism, what is perfectionism? You're either perfect or you're not. It's this dualistic thinking, right? And my brain is like, oh, I really like that. Let's have more of that. That's a good strategy. Let's do that, right? Ultimately, though, even though that's the brain setting that I'm wired to, so to speak, I've learned that perfectionism has way more drawbacks than benefits. I want to put in a caveat, one that Brené Brown uses as well, and that is, I don't want you to get the impression that striving to be better is bad. It's not. There's a difference between striving to be better and wanting to be perfect. The first is achievable, the second is not. Okay? So before we dive too far down into the detriments of perfectionism and the benefits of self-compassion and how to kind of get rid of, start to work towards getting rid of perfectionism, letting it go, I want to join Brené Brown in sharing her definition of perfectionism because I think it's good that we're all on the same page in terms of what she's writing about here. She calls perfectionism, quote, a self-destructive and addictive belief system that fuels this primary thought. If I look perfect, live perfect, work perfect, and do everything perfectly, I can avoid or minimize the painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame, end quote. Shame, that's a big one. What does that mean? It means having not just you're tying something to your behavior, it means that you're tying something to your sense of self-worth. And ultimately, it comes out of a belief that you're not good enough. So for me, perfectionism is the belief that I'm not good at fitting in. And so I use perfectionism to avoid that feeling, to try to fit in where I can, to try to live up to some, perception of others' expectations that they don't even hold. I hold higher expectations of myself than they do. And it still is in some ways, I haven't gotten rid of it entirely, a way for me to feel like I'm accepted in a world where, honestly, there are times I don't feel like I fit in. There are times where I don't feel like I'm enough. And that's the thing, though. We all have those feelings. We all have that imposter syndrome from time to time. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not with you guys, right? I'm over here doing my own thing. We all have those feelings that we're isolated, that we're separated. And it's a natural feeling. So, for years, my perceived imperfections, this perception of imperfection, came from feeling inadequate in many areas of social interaction. Okay? It is and has been difficult for me to make and keep close friends. I'm not always one that enjoys like lively, lots of communication, lots of getting together. I'm not really a partier. I don't often understand some forms of conversation. It goes over my head. Sarcasm, I take it really literally a lot of times. And some forms of humor, I just don't get. So I have some issues there. And I saw them as imperfections. Even though I appear clear and confident up here, that's only because this talk, guess what? It's pre-written and it's rehearsed. In reality, conversations in life aren't pre-written and they aren't rehearsed. So I struggle with things like making small talk and engaging in spontaneous conversation. If you've ever had an awkward moment with me, you know why now, right? I struggle to maintain lengthy eye contact. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. Oftentimes I might be looking at your nose or your mouth instead of your eyes. It's how I get by. And because of this, I tend to struggle with that sense of connection, with feeling like I'm connected with other people. Instead of large crowds and noisy spaces, I tend to prefer the quiet company of one or two people, or better yet, my cats. By the way, the company of cats is very underrated. You should try it sometime. And it's not that I don't want connection. I do. I enjoy deep conversations about topics I like, art and religion and philosophy. And those of you who have had classes with me or book studies where we get to talk about those things, you've seen me open up. You've seen me thrive in those situations. And it's not that I don't enjoy humor. There are some forms of humor I really love. Heck, I wouldn't have been married to Chris this long if I didn't enjoy his humor. So things like puns and wordplay and callbacks to previous jokes, those are the kinds of things that I do enjoy. But I'm learning to see that what I once viewed as imperfections, they aren't really. They're not flaws. For years, I masked these so-called quirks, my unique facets that allow me to shimmer and sparkle as only I can. And now I'm trying something different. I'm trying to drop the mask. I'm trying to learn how perfectionism is another one of those masks and how I can get rid of it. I'm learning to accept how my brain processes information is as unique to me as your brain, and how you process information is unique to you. And I'm learning to accept that, yeah, I'm different, yeah, I'm unique, but that doesn't mean I'm less. Now, Brené Brown points out some of the major impacts of perfectionism. And ultimately, she also points out that it's really a belief system based in I'm not good enough. So in addition to things like depression and anxiety and other forms of addiction, perfectionism in everyday life can impact our success, just how we show up. Now, she uses the term life paralysis. I've heard my husband in conversations that he's had use the term analysis paralysis. I've heard other people use this don't let perfect get in the way of good kind of things. And the idea is that what are those opportunities that we're missing, those ways that we could connect, but we're not doing so because we're afraid of being seen as imperfect. We're afraid of showing up as less than. Now, this is due to the fact that perfectionism is ultimately rooted in our sense of self-worth. Anything less than perfect, especially for a perfectionist like myself, can leave me feeling like I'm left outside the door of opportunity, like I'm too frozen to go forward. But it can also appear and not getting to the finish line. How many times have you not turned in a project or not finished something because you were worried, oh, what if somebody sees that? What if they don't like it? And then what happens when you work your hardest to get there, but you burn out before you get there because you're so worried about having everything perfect that you don't have the energy to get it done? So these are some of the issues that can happen with perfectionism. Part of this path of learning how to let go of perfectionism is becoming aware of our tendencies towards perfectionism in the first place. It's becoming aware of the way that we're human. It's seeing our imperfections not as flaws, but as part of the beauty of this human experience. Now, I'm going to agree with Brené Brown on most of what she said here, but especially this idea that perfectionism is really a continuum. It's not you either a perfectionist or you're not, right? It's a coping mechanism, and so I guarantee you every one of you has used it at some point in your lives. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands. Some of us use it more than others, but we all use it at some point. And the reason why is because we don't want others to see the messy, the imperfect human being that we are. We don't want them to see that messy human side. Yet at the same time, here's the contradiction. We're struggling with this sense of disconnection because we aren't willing to show up as our authentic selves. We aren't willing to let people see us for who we are. We aren't willing to share our stories. We aren't willing to be real. So I'm going to share with you 2 techniques that Brené Brown discusses related to how you start to let go. And you'll kind of recognize these as things that I've touched upon in talks before. The first is exploring our fears, and it's really not as scary as it sounds. And the second part of this is changing our self-talk. That overly critical voice that likes to shame, likes to judge, likes to blame. Now, those of you who have been to my talks before know that I like to call my inner critical voice Gruffy. Some of you may have even met Gruffy in instances where I have turned my inner critical voice to an external critical voice and shoulded myself or shamed myself in some way. And there's others of you that probably just know him just from hearing me talk about him. But part of this exploring our fears means we have to invite that inner critical voice to tea. We have to gently and compassionately listen to what it says, not so that we can wallow in what it says, not so that we can follow it down the pathway that it wants to lead us down, but so that we can see the underlying fears that drive that negative self-talk. And guess what? I got a hint for you. If you're wondering where your fears are coming from, it likely has to do with a sense of your self-worth and how you value yourself. Now, for me, my inner Gruffy likes to call me out when it considers me being unproductive or lazy. Now, it doesn't matter if I just finished a huge project and I'm taking some much needed, much deserved time, or if, hey, I'm just not feeling it and I need some self-care. I need some relaxation. Doesn't matter. My inner voice says, well, your productivity or lack thereof is your worthiness. And if you're not doing anything, you're not worthy. Have you heard that one before? So I got a chance to practice this, practice changing my self-talk over this summer. I took a SEE class with Reverend Pat Venema called Metaphysics 3, and we got the opportunity to work on affirmation and denial statements, also called release statements. And this in unity, this release and affirmations combo is what we use, what we have been using since the days of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore to change our self-talk. So I want to share this statement with you. I release old expectations of myself. I learn to adjust my expectations as I respect my body, my brain, and my sensory needs. I live a full, balanced, and creative life each day, accepting myself just where I am. That last part, accepting myself just where I am, is important. This statement not only starts to counter those fears of feeling not good enough, but it also gives me permission to explore each new day. Guess what? Everything is in flux. Everything changes. When I woke up this morning, I'm not the same Melissa I was yesterday, right? And guess what? I have new needs. I have different needs and different wants today than I had yesterday. And so this kind of statement gives me the room to explore, gives me permission to see myself each day and accept myself each day. Perfect is no longer the expectation. In this guidepost, the author also explores the need for cultivating self-compassion. Now, Brené Brown's discussion of self-compassion actually comes from another researcher, a researcher called Dr. Kristin Neff. And Dr. Kristin Neff has developed these elements of self-compassion. These elements are self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. So in conclusion, I'm going to share just a couple of these, just a little bit about these today. Self-kindness, Brené Brown says, means, quote, being warm, understanding towards ourselves when we suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than ignoring our pain or flagellating ourselves with self-criticism. This is that first part of holding that gruffy voice with compassion and kindness, with saying, okay, I'm going to listen to you, but I'm not going to believe everything you tell me, right? But it's holding yourself with that kind of, it's giving yourself space to be you. Getting in touch with our common humanity means that we recognize that suffering is part of the human experience. Guess what? We all have negative emotions. We all have negative self-talk. We're all going to shame, blame, and judge ourselves from time to time. And understanding that you are not isolated in this. It's not something that you're a victim of. Rather, it's something that's part of the human experience. And so understanding that this is shared. Yes, your specific circumstances, your specific situation might be different. But the underlying emotions, guess what? We all feel those. And then there's the step of mindfulness. And mindfulness means becoming aware of our inner self-talk, that inner criticism, and exploring it with compassion. So this doesn't mean that we ignore our pain, and it certainly doesn't mean that we wallow in it. Rather, this is the part where you invite Gruffy to tea and you just hold space. We approach ourselves with gentleness, with understanding, with grace. So if you're looking to develop a little bit more self-compassion, I do invite you, I did it myself. I went and took Dr. Kristin Neff's self-compassion quiz that's on her website. It's self-compassion.org. And she offers a lot of good resources, a lot of audio meditations, a lot of exercises that you can use to help to start to develop self-compassion in these 3 areas. But now's the time in our service where we get to practice it for ourselves. So I'm going to invite you to join me for a brief meditation on self-compassion. So I'd like you to get calm and comfortable, collected in your chair. Just allow yourself to relax. You're upright but relaxed. Allow your feet to sit firmly on the floor. Allow your hands to maybe rest in your lap or by your side, whatever's comfortable for you. And if you're comfortable with it, you can close your eyes. I invite you now to take a few deep breaths, and as you do, I invite you to breathe in love and breathe out acceptance and understanding. Breathe in love and breathe out acceptance and understanding. Connect to that divine presence, that wellspring of love that moves within you, that has its space in every cell of your body. Just take a moment to connect. It's this presence that allows that deep sense of connection, not just with the world around us, but with our fellow human beings. It's this oneness that has presence in each of us, and so I know if I experience it for myself, I can also see it and experience it in you. So at this time, I invite you to see yourself. Allow yourself to be present in the garden that is your life, the garden that is your inner self. See yourself surrounded by trees and flowers, various forms of greens and pinks and oranges and yellows, and the colors of life just blooming and blossoming around you. And just allow yourself to enjoy that garden. And as you're viewing this garden, you note that there are several pathways before you that lead you throughout your garden. And I would ask you to choose a pathway without fear or judgment of where it's going to lead, just knowing that in this moment, in this space, whatever path you choose is the right path for you. There is no thing as perfection. It's simply being present in the moment. Allow yourself to know that this pathway is as unique as you are, and only you alone can walk it. This beautiful pathway, this way that you show up in the world. This thing that is you. That is uniquely you, that is divinely you. And you leisurely go down this pathway at your own pace. And you notice a new area, a small area off to your left where you can just go off the pathway just a little bit to sit and rest and enjoy the view. It's a nice little kind of alcove, grassy little area. And there's a bench there. And I invite you to sit on this bench and just to take in the beauty around you. Just to notice things you didn't see before. You see flowers blooming, but you also now notice that there are also flowers in decay. That the leaves of some of the trees are starting to turn a little yellow, maybe even a hint of orange. And you take in the beauty of the moment. You breathe in this fresh air as you admire the changes taking place all around you. The world is continuously in flux. Seasons come and go. There is beauty in this process of birth and growth and change. You recognize the beauty as life ebbs and flows. In this moment of awareness, you invite a younger version of yourself to join you on that bench. Can you see your younger self? Look at this version of yourself and look at the curiosity, the admiration that is in their eyes as they gaze upon you. They tell you how proud they are of your progress and of the person you've become. They acknowledge your beauty and your skills and your talent, your kindness and your compassion, your ability to love and be loved. Listen to those wonderful things that make you, you. And then with gentle kindness, with lovingness, take a moment just to apologize to yourself, not out of any sense of needing to have done something more, but simply allowing yourself forgiveness for being too harsh on yourself, for those times where you were overly critical. You were simply doing the best you could in that moment. And that's what you're doing every moment. And so today, you allow yourself to know that showing up is good enough. I invite you to give your younger self a hug and just open yourself to that loving space of forgiveness for all that critical, negative self-talk. It's not all of your being. It's not ultimately who you are. And allow yourself to accept you just the way you are, just where you are on your pathway. Take a moment to see the authentic you, that beautiful, unique you. Allow yourself to see deep within your soul with the eyes of love. Breathe in love. Breathe out acceptance and understanding. Breathe in love. Breathe out acceptance and understanding. At this time, I invite you gently, ever so gently, to just return your awareness to your breath and to your physical body, knowing that you can come back to this place of love, back to this place of acceptance and understanding at any time. You may want to maybe start wiggling fingers or toes, or maybe even rolling your shoulders, or maybe stretching your neck a little. Just be ever so kind with yourself as you start to bring your awareness back to this space. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, open your eyes. I want to thank each and every one of you for showing up here today, not for me, but for yourself. I want to thank each and every one of you for uniquely having all those facets that you have that allow you to shimmer and sparkle as only you can. Namaste.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for inspiring us with your message and meditation. Well done. We also want to thank Bill for doing a good job again up here at the platform, and thank you to the rest of the Unity singers. Thank you to Renee and Steve back there for the slides and the sound. And thank all of you, as Melissa said, for showing up today. And as was said earlier, just showing up, that's enough. Very good. Thank you. As we normally do to end our service, it was a wonderful service today, right? We will gather together, join together as we sing our peace song together, and then end that with our prayer for protection. So let's join in a circle.